Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And today we will be reviewing Taboo, episode 6. So, finally guys, we're kind of starting to get the wrap-ups to the end of the season. There are only 8 episodes in the series, and so we only have 2 remaining. But as I was saying guys, Taboo has become one of my favorite shows. And in this week's episode, we actually got to see Zilpha deal with the abuse she's gotten from her husband Thorn. And we also get some reveals regarding James and his mom. So with James, his butler, or his manservant, I can't quite remember his name, but he finally lets James onto the revelation. His mom wasn't the woman he thought, nor was his father. That his mom actually tried to drown him as an infant. And the father saved his life, had her checked into an insane asylum. And, James, not quite trusting his butler, he actually starts to use some of his, his magic enchantments and spells and different things like that. And so he finds a pool of water, and he's using this water to try to channel back to the incident, as I believe he's been having flashbacks of it, ever since he was a child. But, it does, from the direction the show takes us in, seems to, he seems to come to the realization that it may very well be true that his mom tried to kill him. We also get this interesting scene with Zilpha and James's stepmom, and I can't remember her name either. So, but the stepmom, she basically is looking for James. James is finishing up this situation with the gunpowder and trying to get it all sent to the Americans, trying to keep it stable. And so she's looking for James. They're concerned about him. He's been missing for like 3 days now. So she goes to Zilpha, his sister, in order to try to find out if she may have known where he's at. Zilpha, along with her husband, Zilpha kind of has this strange look on her face, and her husband, they're kind of keeping this united front, as to say they don't know where James is, and they're not concerned about James, that she needs to leave. And the stepmom notices that Zilpha's been abused. She has all types of bruises on her face, and she's basically showing her displeasure, for Zilpha's abuse by her husband, because she's pretty much figured out that Zilpha's husband Thorn is abusing her because of all of the things that have been happening since James has returned back home. And so they ask her to leave, that they don't know where James is, that she needs to go. Basically, Zilpha goes back into her room after that. Thorn's trying to kind of get back on good terms with her. He's letting her know that he's got a newly appointment to go do law someplace else. I believe it's like Australia or South Africa. Zilpha's letting them know that that place is too hot, that she doesn't want to go. And she's in private life, she doesn't associate, or she doesn't have a relationship really anymore with Thorn, her husband, but to the public, she kind of still presents a good face about the relationship and things like that. And so what's interesting, what happens after that scene is that uh, later that evening, Zilpha returns to the bedroom. She climbs on top of her husband, and she pulls out the needle she had from last week that she was kind of talking to herself with about this needle. And Thorne awakens, and he's trying to stop her from stabbing him with the needle. She stabs him in his lower abdomen. She seems to know exactly where to stab him, killing Thorne. So Thorne's storyline, pretty much ends at this point. Him being to Zilpha, he finally meets his end. As the show watchers, I'm sure, were glad to see happen. you know, um, but afterwards, we get this very strange scene where Zilpha runs to James's house, and she runs in, and you're kind of going like, okay, what's going on? What is she running to James to get some kind of help? To confess what she did, and she runs in the house, and she is explaining what she did, but she then goes, "I did exactly what you told me," and he's dead, and James seems a little bit confused a little bit by it, like he kind of it's like, surprised, that this wasn't supposed to happen. But at the same time, she keeps telling him that you told me, you told me. So as I think back on last week's episode, we did get this scene where Zilpha was having this conversation by herself, seemingly holding this long needle in her hand. And so it seems the suggestion is that Zilpha was communicating with James through some type of magic or enchantment, because James wasn't in the room. So, I guess the assumption is that magic and these spells that James is using is actually real in this show. And he simply tells her to go home, that he'll take care of everything, that she needs to leave. And, we basically next get the funeral scene, and in the funeral scene, James is, basically digging Thorne's grave, and he's helping to bury Thorne. And I don't know what they're saying the cause of death was, but I don't know if in this time, I don't know, they probably didn't even do autopsies, or I'm not sure how it worked. I'll have to check that out. But it seems like nobody's really asking any questions. James buries Thorne in the ground, and then in the next scene, we get him coming into the house with Zilpha, and basically telling Zilpha, hey, take off your clothes. They have this, this all this sexual energy and passion, and they're just going at it. And then as they're going at it, as James was doing his spells earlier and trying to figure out, if it was true that his mom killed them, I guess through working this magic and voodoo and different stuff, you know, as he's having sex with Zilpha, he's kind of reliving when he was drowned by his mom, and as he comes to, he's strangling Zilpha the same way that his mom strangled him or tried to drown him underwater. And he's about to kill Zilpha. He snaps out of it just before killing her, and he rushes off. And it just seems that although all his ducks have been lining up in a row and everything is kind of seemingly going to plan, James is kind of losing it with this thing about his mom and casting these various spells and different things like that. Unfortunately, that's not James's only problem. I think at this point the East India Company understands that although they can't kill James, that they can make his situation horrible, his life very terrible. And so, whilst on the docks where his ship is located, James gets a visit from a representative of the East India Company who informs James that we're here just to let you know. Now the gloves have come off, and and that now they're going at him fully with everything they got, just short of killing him, because again they can't kill him, because if they do, the nuclear sound territory will pass to the Americans, and they can't allow that to happen. So they can't kill him, but they certainly make his life very, very miserable. So a few minutes later, as he's on the docks going to check on the ship, the entire ship explodes, and James is devastated by this. He really needed that ship. You know, the East India Company's come at him full power now, and he's just getting drunk. He's going through a real bad hard time, and he's just basically threatening everyone, and he actually does kill several of the people that betrayed him. He cuts out one of their hearts. He cuts out one of their tongues. I believe the priest, he cuts out his tongue, and he cuts out another guy's heart. And the thing is, the gentleman that he normally uses to help him with a lot of these plans that he needs to carry out, that seems kind of like his right-hand man to go through to do a lot of the underhanded things and thefts and various things he needs done. This guy seemingly is always calm around James and in his presence, and he keeps his cool and plays everything off like he normally does. But as James walks out, you can kind of see the truth behind him, that he's very much terrified and disgusted by the things that James does. He kind of just throws up, as James is trying to passes him off this heart he's carved out of one of the people betrayed them's chest. And so we just get this very interesting situation with that. Unfortunately, things get even worse for James. As I was saying earlier, everything had been working out for James. All his ducks had been lined up in a row. He always seemed to be a few steps ahead of the East India Company and the Crown. But things are starting to go real bad for James. He's getting drunk. He doesn't know what to do, as he's lost his ship and he needs another ship. And his friend, the black orphan who usually has these conversations with him, comes up to him whilst he's drunk and dealing with all these various things, and he lets her know, hey, I'm not fit to be around you at this time. Leave, go home. This is not a good time. So we cut to the next scene, and James, seemingly is waking up from a night of drunkenness, and as he gets up and looks down, he sees that the orphan Winter has been killed, murdered, seemingly strangled in the same method that his mom strangled him, and that he kind of reenacted when he was about to strangle and kill Zilpha. And so, this week's episode to me kind of felt like a cliffhanger. It looks like they could have, put this maybe at the final episode, but we'll get 2 more episodes to kind of find out what's going on with James, what's happened. Did he really kill Winter, or is this just yet another setup of the East India Company, maybe to set him up for murder, so he'd be, labeled a criminal or done some type of crime, or maybe in some way they can kind of strip him of his private property. So I don't know. We'll find out. My only comments about this week's episode, I thought it was a pretty good episode. There were some things that happened that I was kind of hoping would have went another way. The situation with how fast Zilpha seemed to be on board with James, after her husband, after she killed her husband. It just seemed like she moved so quickly through that. And so I don't, normally I would have thought that this was all kind of in her to do this anyway, that this is something she wanted to do anyway. However, by them introducing the magic into it and making us feel like the magic thing is real, it was a little bit concerning that Is she then under the enchantment of the magic? Is that why she's doing that? Or is something she wanted to do anyway? I don't know. But, you know, I just think this show, the um, the subject matter of it, it would have just been quite a really good show, an interesting show without the introduction of the magic, without the introduction of the relationship between him and the sister. I just think it's a very interesting uh, time period in history where the show can carry itself just based on the information we have about the show, happening around the War of 1812 and various things like that. I just thought it could have been a great show without those things. But, anyway, the show took that direction. I still like the show. It's still one of my favorite shows. I just didn't like how the Zilpha things turned out. Uh, he and Zilpha, they seem kind of, it's something weird going on with the relationship. Like, Zilpha kind of seems like she's in her own mindset. She has her own plan, and so does James. And they seem kind of disconnected, like they're working together and they're orbiting around each other. But it doesn't seem like the situation they set it up as throughout the start of the show. Like they were these star-crossed lovers caught in this forbidden relationship, and so I thought they would kind of go on that, but I don't know. It's just I'm sensing something different about where they want to take this relationship with these two. And also the stepmom keeps getting introduced into it, like some kind of way she's going to be caught up in the triangle. But anyway, guys, those are just my thoughts. Feel free to comment about how you feel about the magic introduction into the show being suggested that it's real. Do you think it was necessary? Do you like those elements? Um, Again, guys, thanks for watching this week. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, take care.